What's going on, everybody? Mike Tipton hanging out with you here on a Friday morning. You can tell it is an exhausted kind of day. I can hear just the exhaustion in my own voice. But you know what? We make it through. We do all the things that we got to do here on the Tipping Point with Mike Tipton. Remember, we are brought to you by our friends over at RevAutoCarCare.com. That's RevAutoCarCare.com. Wow. That's what a way to start the show. I got to do that all over again. Remember, we are brought to you by our friends over at RevAutoCarCare.com. That's RevAutoCarCare.com. Use promo code Tipton33 and save up to 15% on all of your car care needs. RevAutoCarCare.com. Promo code Tipton33. All right. Yesterday, the national championship, or one of the games, the semifinal for the national championship happened. It was between Notre Dame and Penn State. Penn State going out to an early lead, and Notre Dame ultimately coming back, winning the game. It was a 10-10 game entering the fourth quarter, and then just out of nowhere explodes into a 27-24 win for Notre Dame late in the game. I'm looking all over social media. I see people like Des Bryant, people that I like, right? Like, you got Des Bryant out here saying that Penn State dominated this game. Penn State was clearly the better team. And to me, you can't say that anymore. Like there's no way that you can sit back, watch sports, and say to yourself, the team that won wasn't the better team, right? Like I get that that's a narrative that always happens. That's one of the things in sports that people tend to talk about is the better team doesn't win this day or any of that stuff, right? And I'm not a believer in that. If you were the better team, you would have found a way to win. Penn State, Drew Aller, felt like he was doing everything he could to lose that game. Look at the last play of the game. A wobbly pass that just floats out of bounds to end the game. Like not even a try at getting something downfield or anything to anybody that was around that football. Instead, it's just a little floater, flutters out of bounds into the game. Notre Dame was the better team yesterday. Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, like that team, you could see the fight in them. Everyone's all, and I'm guilty of this as well, right? There's a lot of people out there that are always going to say, "Oh, well, Notre Dame is going to get the calls, and Notre Dame is going to get this, and you know they don't play in a conference, so they're not going to be as strong as some of these other teams." And I am wrong. I was wrong about Notre Dame losing to Georgia. I chose Notre Dame yesterday, so I guess I was right about that. But I thought that it would be a completely different kind of game. I like Penn State. I thought Penn State had the easier route to get to where they were in the semifinal of the college football playoff with everything that happened with the seeding, getting SMU, and then getting Boise State. Like, it seemed like it was just an easier path for Penn State to get there. And I'm looking at social media, and I see all these things of like Notre Dame. This is the reason why I think it was Dave Portnoy. He puts out there on X that Notre Dame would never be able to survive in a conference because they're getting bullied by Penn State. Meanwhile, this year, Notre Dame beat 4 Big Ten teams. 2 in their last games, right? Like Indiana, and you already know my opinions on Indiana. Indiana's super overrated. Shouldn't have been in the top 12 with their 106th strength of schedule. Beats Penn State. They've done what they've needed to do. They've beaten teams in the Big Ten, 4 of them this season. You can't sit back and say that Notre Dame has a cupcake ride to get to where they are right now. The question is going to be, is Notre Dame good enough, though, to beat UT Austin or to beat Ohio State? And it depends on what version of Notre Dame you're going to get, right? And I always hate that type of response to things, that type of retort, whenever people are like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, maybe it's this or it's that, right? Like, it's one of these things, but who knows, really? Like who really knows how this team is going to perform? That, to me, is a cop-out. but it's the case here for Notre Dame. But I also feel like Notre Dame would have to play a almost perfect game. Not like what they had yesterday, but an almost perfect game to beat Texas. But they would also have to play a pristine game to beat Ohio State, because I think Ohio State is the best team left now in the college football playoff. Congratulations to Notre Dame for making the college football championship game, the first time getting this far in God knows how long, a legitimate chance of winning a national championship since the first time since 1988. Congratulations to you, Notre Dame, on that aspect of things. But it also feels like Notre Dame is the weaker team here. And maybe I'm going to get proven wrong. I've been surprised. I shouldn't be, but I've been surprised at the amount of people in El Paso that are apparently Notre Dame fans. I haven't seen anything about it. I covered the Sun Bowl last year where Notre Dame was there, checking out all the same people basically on social media. Yes, I've had an influx of people on my social media over the last year. Thank you to those that have joined that. But nowhere throughout the season, the college football season, have I seen the amount of people supporting Notre Dame that I have seen supporting Notre Dame today. But that's just the gravitas of that team, right? Like, that's just the gravitas of who Notre Dame is. They are always going to be one of these teams that has a giant fan base because of what they stand for, right? Like Touchdown Jesus, all the stuff that goes along with the Golden Dome for Notre Dame. So they're always going to have a subsect of the population that absolutely loves Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame will be the fan favorite. Their fans travel. They are diehard. I got nothing but love for those people. A couple of my good friends, Mike Golick Jr. and them, huge Notre Dame fans. He played for Notre Dame, right? So he has that type of connection to them. His dad played for Notre Dame before going and playing in the NFL. Like, I know that Notre Dame is more than likely going to be the overwhelming fan favorite here, no matter who wins between UT Austin and Ohio State. But I also want the chaos of Notre Dame losing in the national championship game. Like that's one of those things where, like, I'm just a fan of what that chaos is going to do, right? Marcus Freeman loses to Northern Illinois this season, and it's talking about he needs his head to roll, blah, 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 blah. Makes history yesterday, becoming the first black head coach to make a national championship game. For the people that are trying to downplay that, you really got to look at yourself, internalize things about yourself, and maybe, just maybe, one day you'll be happy with who you are as an individual. But that's a historic moment, watching Marcus Freeman become the first black head coach to be in the national championship game with the current iteration that we have now, right? So I'm watching all of these things, and I'm kind of looking back and forth, and I'm trying to see what it is that other people saw in how Penn State, quote unquote, dominated Notre Dame. Yes, late in the game, both teams were moving the ball on each other. Let's not forget this was a 10-10 game going into the fourth quarter. That late run, Jeremiah Love breaking tackle after tackle after tackle, stretching out, and what's going to be the greatest poster of his career, stretching out his entire body to try to reach over the goal line to get himself a touchdown. I don't think either team dominated either team. It was a great matchup. Why do we have to always, in sports, fall back to, oh, well, it's a whole, this team was the better team. Clearly, they had more yards, or they had this, or they had that. That stuff doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's whoever the hell won the game, right? Like looking at the individual stats or the team stats or any of that stuff, if it was such a one-sided game, according to stats, the score would say that. But that's not how sports work. At the end of the day, whatever team had the most points is the team that won the damn game. Right? We need to break this whole mindset of, oh, well, you got dominated, so you deserve to lose. Nobody got dominated in a 27-24 game. It was a great game, a fantastic game. I'm not a huge college football guy, but even I'm on the edge of my seat watching this game go back and forth, trying to play Old Maid, which was a different version of Old Maid than what I was used to playing as a kid with like my family and stuff. And I'm watching this football game and I'm just sitting back thinking to myself, holy hell, what a game that we are watching right now, right? That we get to watch this game for free, doing all of the cool stuff that you get to see out here on the football field, all the cool camera angles. Maybe I'm the only person that watches a game that way, appreciating camera angles and access and stuff like that. But I was on the edge of my seat for two teams I could not care less about. Augustine Pimentel saying most points scored. What? Really? Yes, the team that scores the most points wins the game. Don't know what the question is here. For me, please add more context to your comments. Jesus Christ, guy. Yes, the team that scores the most points is the team that wins. If it's sarcasm, cool. I don't know. I don't get what you're trying to say here. I'm reading a comment. All right. But those are my thoughts on the first game of the semifinal. Of course, later on today, we're going to have the Texas Longhorns taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Buckeyes, a 5-point favorite over the Texas Longhorns. I feel like Texas is going to be able to cover. Like, I don't see this game being an absolute blowout. Tommy Canasta saying good morning. Good morning to you, Tommy. I don't see this game being an absolute blowout. I feel like Texas can cover that 3-point or that 5-point spread. They probably lose by 3. I'm going to take Ohio State in this one. Again, as sacrilegious as that sounds, I'm going to take Ohio State in this one. Texas struggling against Arizona State makes me really wonder. And I believe the national championship game is going to be between Notre Dame and Ohio State. Want to know your thoughts on that? Please let me know what some of your thoughts are. Again, this is a Freestyle Friday that we're going to be doing here. Not on the national show today. It's just going to be all local stuff. So we'll talk about some of those things. Coming up, the University of Texas El Paso selling out the Don Haskins Center for the Battle of I-10 as the hated rival of New Mexico State comes down to El Paso, and they have a game against each other on this Saturday. So much hype surrounding this game that the University of Texas El Paso is opening the doors at the Haskins Center a full half hour early. The gates open at 5:30 for the sold-out game. UTEP basketball taking on New Mexico State basketball. It's going to be a fun time out there. Maybe you'll see your boy. Who knows? I was going to try to get tickets. A lot of people trying at the last minute to get tickets, asking me to help get them tickets. I'm like, look, guys, I can ask questions, but I guarantee I'm not going to be able to get you anything. I've asked my questions, haven't been able to get any tickets for you. I apologize. I'll be, though, down on the press row with my camera, hanging out with a front row seat because perks of being me. But New Mexico State taking on the University of Texas at El Paso, sold out at the Haskins Center. That's going to be a fun game. The Battle of I-10. Let's see how that winds up playing out. I did put out on social media that I wanted some questions from some fans. I'm going to get to some of the questions. Some people sending me questions simply because I guess they want to try to embarrass me, which is fine, right? Do I know anything about cricket? No, neither do you. You did a Google search and you're like, oh, hey, cricket, this is cool. Come on. Ask genuine, actual questions, but I will get to some of these a little bit later on. Right now, the first question that I got, though, and I love these types of questions. And it came from Cynthia Russell over on the Facebook page, and she said, why do people continue to root for the Dallas Cowboys? Why do people, basically their fans, why do their fans continue to root for the Dallas Cowboys? Augustine Pimentel comments on there, because they're stupid. Great answer. Very well thought out, intellectually stimulating type of answer. I will go a bit further on this. Being a fan of a team isn't as simple as, okay, well, one day I'm just going to stop, right? Like, think about the people in your life. Think about your kids, your family, any of this stuff. I basically emancipated myself from the majority of my family at a young age, realizing that I didn't want to be around those people. A very tough decision, right? A lot of the times whenever people find themselves into sports, you make a connection with that team, with that sport, right? Like for me, I talk about basketball all the time. How am I a bigger basketball fan than I am a football fan? Because to me, the basketball court felt like it was the only place on this planet where I was comfortable and where I felt like I was at home. Even now, I get a basketball. There's something about that feel of a basketball in my hand, the perfect release as I let go, and the sound that it makes when it goes through the net that cannot be replaced, cannot be replicated, cannot be duplicated by any other thing, right? As much as I love football, as much as I love baseball, even the sound of the bat hitting something nice and solid doesn't sound the same to me as that perfect shot going through, swish, right? That's what teams are for a lot of people. There are people out there that are Dallas Cowboys fans because, one, it was passed down to them generationally, right? We're talking about a team that's been around for 60 some odd years. It's just what you do. Tommy Cananza saying it right here, all caps, because when you're a real fan, it's what you do. You stick with your team through the thick and the thin, the good times and the bad, right? Think about it as any relationship that you actually want to cultivate and make better. No matter how hard it gets, you want to try to find your way through, right? Like that's what sports is. That's what life is. If you just give up because something got hard, it's going to be a harder life for you, right? But I had to think about this from a wider perspective. And I was like, okay, why is it only Dallas Cowboys fans that get called out on this, right? Like, how is it consistently? Why are you a fan of the Dallas Cowboys? They're bad. Why have we not said this to Bears fans, Browns fans, Bengals fans, Texans fans, Lions fans? I mean, you can go on and on and on and on and on, a whole list of teams that haven't had any success, tangible, real success in X amount of years. Why are there Philadelphia Eagles fans? It took them 52 years to win their first Super Bowl. Why is it, though, that every fan base wants to just say, why do the Cowboys fans still support the Dallas Cowboys? And I thought about this because the person who asked this question, Cynthia Russell, is a Minnesota Vikings fan. Why? If you're going to ask how I'm a fan of a team, I should be able to ask you why you're a fan of your team. Why are you a fan of the Minnesota Vikings, a team that hasn't won any championships, hasn't made the Super Bowl since 1977, 7 years before I was born, and almost 20 years before the Dallas Cowboys' last appearance in the Super Bowl? Why is it that you feel like, okay, I can support this team despite their lack of success, but Cowboys fans shouldn't support their team despite their lack of success, lack of perceived success, right? At least the Cowboys fans can say, yeah, in 1995, they won a Super Bowl. What can you say as a Minnesota Vikings fan, as an Atlanta Falcons fan, as a fan of the Detroit Lions right now? Yeah, you're on the come up, but what happens if you don't win this year, Detroit? What about the Cleveland Browns? And it's weird how it's always another fan base, and all they want to talk about is simply, why do you support the Dallas Cowboys still? Because you lose more than you win as a fan. It's that simple. You lose more than you win as a fan. In Utopia, I say this all the time, in Utopia, you win a championship in the NFL once out of every 32 years. That would be utopic. Every team winning the championship once every 32 years. That just doesn't happen, right? Like you lose much more than you win. Even when we look at these dynasties right now, the New England Patriots won 6 Super Bowls over a 20-year span, and that is incredible. But that also means they lost 14 chances at it. Why is it that we can say definitively, how can you be a fan of this team when this team sucks? Yet your team is the exact same way with less success in multiple lifetimes. We talk about the Dallas Cowboys having generations of fans that have never seen them win a championship. I'm glad that I'm on the cusp and the precipice of all of that stuff. But I look at other teams and I'm just like, man, that's awesome. You're supporting your team. My friends that are Philadelphia Eagles fans, me sitting in the radio studios at ESPN, watching their faces light up as the reality of their team winning a championship finally sets in on them. I had to produce a show following the Super Bowl with 3 Philadelphia Eagles fans who I guarantee you would rather have been anywhere else than there. But watching how happy they were to finally say, my team is a champion. Some of these dudes in their 50s, right? Like they have gone through it year after year after year of their team not winning, yet they sit there and support them. But we question the Dallas Cowboy fans? Come on. Like genuinely. I would love to ask this question back and say, what does it matter? At the end of the day, what does it matter? As if Minnesota Vikings fans weren't upset at the beginning of this season whenever they drafted J.J. McCarthy, an unproven prospect out of college football. And then he gets injured and they have to go to Sam Darnold, as if we're going to say Minnesota Vikings fans are like, oh yeah, no, this season's going to be great. This season, we're going to end the season 14-3, and it's going to be amazing because we believe in Sam Darnold. Really. That I'm sure on Minnesota sports radio, Minnesota Vikings fan pages and things like that, were so happy that Sam Darnold was going to be their starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. Hell, it was halfway through the season, and people were still asking, is Sam Darnold the guy? I love sports because of storylines. I love sports because of the ability to redeem yourself. I hate sports because you constantly have fans who just want to talk about another team, one team, more than their own damn team. And I get it. Like Augustine says it all the time. I don't like Cowboys, or I don't have a problem with the Cowboys. I have a problem with their fans. You're doing the exact same thing. Currently, as a Patriots fan, you are supporting a team that has been bad since 2018. We're going now on a decade of ineptitude. Medusa Designs saying, Tip, good morning. Good morning to you, Medusa Designs, answering the age-old question of why do Cowboys fans still support the Dallas Cowboys? Because fandom is unexplainable. It's short for fanatic, right? Like, we know as fans, for whatever reason, we fell in love with this team, and this is going to be our team, right? Like, that's just how it works. And for a lot of people, that team is an escape. That team is your safe place. Even if they let you down, it's still your safe place. It's a place where you feel the most comfortable. Tommy Canassa saying the Vikings are good 1 year, and now they're sending questions like that. 100%. 1977, the last time they made a Super Bowl. 4 Super Bowls in the 70s. This many Super Bowl wins. As many Super Bowl rings as I have. Yet we're going to question why Dallas Cowboys fans remain fans of the Dallas Cowboys. It's a ridiculous question. And to answer it with, oh, they're stupid. No. Fans are fans, and it's an unexplainable thing. Why do I like the color orange? Why do I like the color blue? Why do I like Mustangs? I just do. You don't think I get jokes thrown my way all the time because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan that drives a Mustang? I mean, come on, guys. And again, it's always the same people that are like, oh, you drive a girl's car. Okay, cool. I drive a girl's car. I support the Dallas Cowboys. I also sound like this, and I can guarantee that any one of you out there, if we had a conversation, most of the women in your life would wish you sounded like me. So yes, I drive a girl's car, and I support the Dallas Cowboys. I'll keep flaming on. You have no idea how many times I get that too. Like, oh, you must be a little on the frou-frou side because you drive a Mustang and you're a Cowboys fan. Okay. Meanwhile, you sound like Mickey Mouse. I also apologize. You'll notice on Fridays, I don't speak at the higher tone that I normally do on Monday through Thursday, just because I'm trying to give my voice a rest. Speaking at this type of a level, it hurts my throat. So I'm this is the natural voice of me, right? So I apologize if it doesn't sound as great or as chipper as it normally does, but I'm not going to strain my voice on a Friday. Y'all get the real tip. Pause? Do we pause there? I think that's a pause. You get the real tip. Hold on, let me take the glasses off. You get the real tip. But just a design saying big facts. Go with that. Don't know what the big facts are, but hey, I'm cool with it. Cody Bachmeyer asking, and this is related to the Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings, bad game or an alarming sign? I feel like it was a bad game. They're a good team. I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl, but they're a good team. The benefit of having an easier schedule, getting the wins that they were able to get, doing all the stuff that they were able to do. 14 wins. You cannot say that that a team that wins 14 games isn't good enough, right? Like, they're a good team. They're a really good team. However, I feel like they overachieved all season long. I feel like they overachieved, and the sad thing is if they lose in Arizona against the LA Rams, the fan base is going to say, oh, what a wasted season. But the fact of the matter is, going back to what I said earlier, nobody thought they would have had this season at the beginning of the year whenever J.J. McCarthy goes down and Sam Darnold becomes a quarterback. Nobody would have thought it. All of the people out there, all of the ESPN folk and all those people that are talking about how great they are at being able to predict all of these things, we're saying the Minnesota Vikings could win 4 to 6 games. They won 14. They vastly overachieved, and I don't think that you can say this is an alarming sign losing to what can be the best team in the NFL. The Lions are a damn good team, guys. Like, we can't just be like, oh, they lost and this is going to be it. We're done. Wiping our hands of it. I feel like, though, the Minnesota Vikings have something here. They have to, in my opinion at least, they have to re-sign Sam Darnold. I don't know if you're going to give him, huge money, but you need that guy on your team because that team loves that guy. J.J. McCarthy can be your backup. Maybe he sits back, he watches, he learns, and maybe, just maybe, you have the benefit of, I've got 2 quarterbacks that I can choose from. One's a little older. Maybe we can get rid of him for draft capital and have the other guy, or vice versa. But right now, I feel like the best move for the Minnesota Vikings would be to sign Sam Darnold to maybe a 4-year deal, see what you can get out of it, see if you could run it back. I don't believe you're going to win 14 games again next year, but you could probably make the playoffs. And all you want to do is be invited to the dance. As long as you get invited to the dance, you might be able to have the ability to win something. Just make it there. So I don't know if I can call it a bad game or an alarming sign. I think it was just simply a bad game, right? Like, if they lose to the Rams, and a lot of people are on the Rams bandwagon, Augustine saying that he's got them as like a dark horse, right? I don't think that you can hate on Minnesota having to go on the road, having to go, again, it's Arizona, but you're on the road. You're not at home. You're traveling further. You're doing all of the stuff. You're coming off of a deflating loss. If Minnesota were to lose to the Rams, I don't think that says anything negative about Minnesota's season, because none of us, absolutely none of us, could have seen the Minnesota Vikings being in the playoffs as a 14-win team that didn't win their division because of how good their division is. And I know it sounds crazy to say that because you got to capitalize on the ability to do these things. You got to capitalize on your chances, right? Your window is open and it shuts and it does whatever it's going to do. You have to capitalize on these chances if you are the Minnesota Vikings, and that's how fans are going to think. Me, not so much. You vastly overachieved. The beginning of the season, we didn't think you were going to be here. You're here. Are you okay with that? Or do you want to get, is one win in the playoffs enough? Is the fan base saying, no, 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 no. In order for this season to be a success, we have to win the Super Bowl? I don't think so. I think it's going to be a decent season no matter what the outcome is for the Minnesota Vikings. I think they would be disappointed if they lose to the Rams, but we're talking about a team that won the Super Bowl not too long ago, right? Like, they have the majority of those players still there, minus Aaron Donald. Minnesota Vikings talk, heavy here. El Paso's sports leader in Minnesota Vikings talk. Daniel Gonzalez asked yesterday, who wins the CFP semifinal games, Texas versus Ohio State and Notre Dame versus Penn State? Yesterday I said Notre Dame over Penn State is who I would have chosen. Notre Dame gets the win over Penn State. My dude, Pat Costello, now owing former Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle Chris Canty $100 worth of steak. That's like a single steak in New York, I believe. So you get one steak there, Chris Canty. Good for you. Chose Notre Dame. My opinion, I just thought that they were the better team. They've been hotter, right? Like, and it always comes down to turnovers. Notre Dame forces more turnovers than Penn State does on defense. Notre Dame has a very underrated defense, and we saw the way the game turned yesterday. Aller throwing that pass, just getting picked off at the right time. Notre Dame able to get the ball, march it down the field a little bit, kick the game-winning field goal, which did look like it was going to miss. Touchdown, Jesus, a little bit of a blessing. That ball curved back in order to get into the uprights. Notre Dame ultimately winning that game. That's who I had chosen. I want Texas to win. I would love the ability, just because I'm an annoying-ass Texan, I would love the ability to be like, oh, yeah, Texas beat Ohio State. Texas beat Arizona State. Texas makes it to the championship. They beat Notre Dame, and they are the champion. And everyone has to genuflect at the University of Texas as the champion, therefore de facto bowing to the state of Texas as your superior football brand in college, not in the NFL, because the Cowboys and the Texans are on the struggle bus as of recent. But I think OSU is just the better all-around team. But, like, Texas has a great offensive line. They struggled against Arizona State. They outweighed Arizona State by an average of 60 pounds per player and still couldn't run the ball on them. Ohio State's going to have bigger players. Ohio State is seemingly on a mission right now, the way that they destroyed Oregon. I just feel like Ohio State, it might be theirs to lose, but I'm going with Ohio State to win this game here. I'd love to see Texas win. I just don't see the possibility of the University of Texas Longhorns beating the Ohio State Buckeyes. Obviously, you play the game, right? Like you got to play the game, and anything can happen in the game. And I'm probably going to be here on Monday saying about how wrong I was about that game. I thought that yesterday I was going to be wrong. It's probably going to be tonight where I'm going to be wrong. So I've got Notre Dame was outright to win it by a 1-point favorite. I don't know if you can really call that an upset or anything like that, but I've got Texas covering the 5-point spread, Ohio State winning the whole thing. Augustine Pimentel asking, out of Liverpool with the Mohamed Salah issue that's going on over there, why would Liverpool let Mo Salah leave on a free transfer? It doesn't seem very logical. I love whenever I get the ability to talk about other sports, right? I'm not a huge soccer guy, but I love business. I love sports business, and that's what I'm going to talk about right here. Liverpool is owned by the same sports group that owns the Boston Red Sox, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and a couple of other ancillary franchises like a NASCAR team and a couple of other things like that. They're called Fenway Sports Group. Fenway Sports Group had their peak, their absolute apex in 2018, 2019, like around that season, right? The Penguins are back-to-back champions in the NHL. The Boston Red Sox win their 4th World Series of the 2000s. And Liverpool, for the first time in God knows how long, wins the EPL. That is their peak. They have won their championships. And then we look at what's happened with those franchises since, right? They were up at the top when it came to spending. Now they're kind of just in the middle. They did what everybody blames the Dallas Cowboys on. Fenway Sports Group did the Dallas Cowboys model of, we're going to get you a championship. Now we're not going to spend as much, not what the Dallas Cowboys do, but now we're not going to spend as much, and we're going to live off of, these are historic franchises that fan bases are going to support no matter what. Sound familiar? They are trying to do, and this is what's so different for Liverpool, right? Fenway Sports Group is trying to do the American sports business model of, we just have to be good enough to not be demoted because we know you're still going to buy our merch, sell out our stadium, watch all of our TV games, and you're going to be happy with it. Look at the Boston Red Sox right now. The worst team in the AL over the last couple of years. They won their championship. They had a high payroll. They let guys like Mookie Betts leave. Now they've got a middle-of-the-road payroll, zero expectations on this team, but a fan base that is always going to show up to that historic stadium, watch their games, and buy their merch. Now let's talk about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Wins a championship, has one contract on there that's long-term, which is Sidney Crosby, because you cannot let him go as one of the best players in the NHL. You've got Malkin on there as well, Evgeny Malkin on there as well. But you let players like Marc-Andre Fleury leave. You didn't re-sign a lot of other players. Like you've had a lot of turnover. You went from having one of the top payrolls to being a middle-of-the-road payroll, and now if you make it to the playoffs, you're good. If you don't make it to the playoffs, you're fine. You have a fan base that was satiated with a championship in recent memory that is going to be able to live off of that championship in recent memory, still buy merch, still watch the games, still buy tickets. That's what it's down to, right? Like the other day being asked, like, is Jerry Jones a good owner? Of course he's a good owner. He did what an owner's supposed to do. Build the value of your franchise so whenever you sell it, you get the most in return. Fenway Sports Group is doing the exact same thing. If you mean to tell me right now that the Boston Red Sox, the Pittsburgh Penguins, or even Liverpool went for sale today, that they wouldn't make record-breaking sales? Of course they would. So now what you're doing is you're maximizing, by minimizing your payroll, you're maximizing what the overhead on a potential sale could be. Eventually, fans are going to have that, this was 10 years ago mindset, right? Like it was in the past. It's just sitting back here fluttering. You got to win another championship. The value of the team has gone up, so why not spend a little bit of money? Let's win another championship. Let's buy our championship. If you don't think championships can be bought, you are living in a world of pure imagination. The Boston Red Sox are in a sport that doesn't have a salary cap. There is no salary cap in soccer. There is a salary cap in hockey, but the salary cap in hockey doesn't apply to the playoffs. So you can have a guy sit out the entire season. He's on your payroll, but he can come back and just play in the playoffs. We've seen it happen with the Vegas Golden Knights. We've seen it happen with the Tampa Bay Lightning. We've seen the Pittsburgh Penguins do the exact same thing. Hell, even the Washington Capitals did the exact same thing. That's how you win in hockey. You have to navigate through the systems and the parameters that are allowed right there in front of you. Prim and Proper Sports saying good morning, Tip. Good morning over to you, Sonia, as well. I will be on Prim and Proper Sports this afternoon, or actually this evening, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of stuff, college football playoff, all of that. Shout out to them. Go follow them, Prim and Proper Sports, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere. They are part of the Roku channel that I do with National Streaming Sports. Not today. Only Monday through Thursday. Not today. But I will be on National Streaming Sports tonight with Prim and Proper Sports. Now, getting back to the issue here at hand, though, right, is Liverpool being owned by Fenway Sports Group. We talk about money, right? Like that's what it all comes down to at the end of the day, just money, 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 money. That's the reason why they're going to be able to let a player like Mohamed Salah leave. You don't need to worry about satiating the fans. Now, I don't feel like they're just going to let him walk. I feel like they are just posturing right now, right? Like look at the Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott. The whole talk was, are you really going to let Dak Prescott leave? Like again, the magician thing. Look at my hand over here while I'm picking your pocket over here. I think that's all it is, just posturing. It wasn't a good look by Mo Salah to be like, oh, hey, look, you guys need to pay me or I'm going to walk or I'll do this or I'll do that, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, the player's going to be about their money. Pay that man his money. Liverpool's more than likely going to pay that man his money. Prim and Proper Sports saying shared. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. That is the way that we grow the brands, grow each other's stuff, is by sharing each other's stuff. I want to give a shout out to everyone that does share the show, especially over on Facebook. I know Medusa Design, Stephanie Aragon, Jessica Forzon, all y'all. I appreciate the love and support that y'all give me as well. But that's what it comes down to with Liverpool. It's just money. At the end of the day, it's a business. If Mo Salah, who is going to demand a lot of money, demands more money than what his overall asset value would be to the team, then the team has to let him walk. Especially when you're looking at an ownership group that has let players like Marc-Andre Fleury, that has let players like Mookie Betts leave historic franchises and start a quote-unquote rebuild. Would you be surprised if, knowing that that's Fenway Sports' model of how they do things, would you be surprised knowing that that's what Fenway Sports Group did with Liverpool? We've got to stop looking at it as, oh, that's a Fabergé egg over there, and no one's going to break that egg. Like, why would you go into our English Premier League with your American sports model? Why would I do that? Because you allowed me to buy your team. You don't want the American sports model with Liverpool? Don't allow American sports owners to buy your teams. That's simple. And it's going to be hard to fight money with money with money with money, right? Like, we're looking at the NBA and the NFL and all these other leagues right now. Like, look at the Washington Wizards. I believe it's 15% of their team is now owned by the Saudi sports fund. When is that money going to start coming into play into buying actual full franchises? We've got to stop looking at it as though the world of sports is some sort of sacred place. It really isn't. It's a playground. It's a game. And it's being treated as such. Another question from Augustine asking me, do I think that Lewis Hamilton will do well for Ferrari? Of course I do. He's one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time, if not the greatest F1 driver of all time. Most wins, most poles. I mean, what are we doing here, dude? Like, Ferrari, if you're not big into F1, I'm not going to bore you on this. Ferrari and McLaren, and then you got Max Verstappen with Honda, which is just mind-blowing, right? Max Verstappen and a Honda being just an unstoppable force. But, I mean, you're talking about a great driver. It's not like it's that different to get used to a different car, right? Like, you just learn how to make the most out of it. Lewis Hamilton's been doing a bunch of practice rounds and things like that to get used to the car. I believe they said they're going to let him do 1,000 hours of driving in the Ferrari race cars. So will he do well? Yes. But what is, again, my opinion, he'll do well. But what is the definition of well? Is he going to win 104 poles and 105 races with Ferrari? Probably not. But what is your definition of success? Because that definition changes with all of us, right? Like, my definition of success this year is the Minnesota Vikings. They had a phenomenal season. They made it to the playoffs. If they don't win a Super Bowl, it was still a successful year. But you're going to have people out there that say the Minnesota Vikings, if they don't win the Super Bowl, were unsuccessful this year. I don't think you can look at it that way, right? Like, it's not black and white. There's a lot of gray area here that we have to define. What is your version of success and does well? I believe he'll do well. He'll more than likely win a couple of races, a handful of races this year. but Max Verstappen is just on another level. I mean, the guy is, if you don't watch F1, just watch 1 or 2 or go search up highlights, because Max Verstappen is, he's got a song about how great he is. Like, again, mind-blowing. I don't get to talk a lot about F1. I actually like F1. I like F1 a lot. I don't necessarily watch soccer a whole bunch, but I love the ability to be able to talk about sports business. And that right there, if you're going to bring up Liverpool owned by Fenway Sports Group, knock that one smooth out the park, my guy, my boy. I got to look up a couple of the other questions here. My screen went blank, and I don't know what happened, so I've got to try to save it up. I know Medusa Designs had sent a couple of questions as well, so I got to try to find out where those are. Click on my own profile here. Don't know how my screen went black or why it went black. I'm not talking about like my phone screen. I'm talking about the screen over here is black. Like I can't see anything in front of me at this exact moment, which is kind of terrifying. James Steele asking, why are you the way you are? Simple answer, trauma. Danny Luke over on Facebook asking, will John Gruden be a coach in the NFL next season? I don't know if it'll be this upcoming season, right? Like we're still on the heels of, he said some pretty bad stuff. Is he going to be allowed back? And then he wasn't that great with the Raiders. So is the headache of having John Gruden worth paying John Gruden? You know what I mean? Like does the negative outweigh the positive right now? I think John Gruden as a coach was probably surpassed about a decade or so ago. You can't spend a decade away from the sport and just come back thinking that you know everything about it, right? Look at what happened to Herm Edwards in Arizona. Look at what happened to John Gruden in Las Vegas. It doesn't seem like it's a match made in heaven, but I also wouldn't be surprised if some team out there, probably the Dallas Cowboys, took a flyer on someone like John Gruden. If I see John Gruden on the sidelines of the Dallas Cowboys, I will not be happy. I will support them, but I will not be happy. Sheldon McKenzie asking, why are you so ridiculously good looking? I just am. Dan Ornelas asking, wildcard picks, how many road teams do you think will pull off the upset? I absolutely love that question. One of them to me, and I don't know if you can even call it an upset, so it sounds like it's doing the easy way out. I believe the Minnesota Vikings drawing the Los Angeles Rams, having to play in Arizona, that's probably one of the teams I can see pulling off the quote-unquote upset. But is it really an upset whenever it's a 4-win team or a 14-win team beating a 10-win team? I don't know if you can call it an upset. Technically, it is an upset based off of seeding, but it's not necessarily that much of an upset whenever you look at the actualities of things. Then, of course, you got to look at the other games that are going on here. The Los Angeles Chargers taking on the Houston Texans. Houston, downslide here. I can see a scenario where the Chargers win that game. Houston, I'm going to be cheering for Houston just because, again, I'm an annoying-ass Texan. Prim and Proper Sports saying it's definitely not an upset. 100% not an upset. A 14-win team beating a 10-win team on the road just because of the ridiculous seeding patterns that we have in professional sports. Crazy to me on some of that. Also from Sonia saying some of these teams are only are in the playoffs because there were no better teams. Yeah, right? Like whenever you win a terrible division, that's what happens whenever you get in. I believe the quote-unquote upset will be Minnesota beating the Rams, the Chargers beating the Texans. Winning the AFC South is like going to the dance with your cousin. You're just there because no one else wanted to be there with you. I had to think back. Was there ever a time I went to a dance with my cousin? I don't think there was. Or maybe I'm just suppressing a memory. Other games that are going on right now. Denver at Buffalo. Dan, I know you're a Broncos fan and you're trying to see if I would have faith in your Denver Broncos. Again, I look at what good is. What is the definition of good? The Denver Broncos, to me, had a good season. It comes to an end in Buffalo. I don't see them pulling off the upset and beating the Buffalo Bills. Tommy Cananza asking, what do you think the Cowboys should do with their first pick this year? I think they need to go BPA. We can't afford to draft more Mize and Guytons. No high upside projected players in round one. Yeah, that's the question, right? Like, I know that the performance that Ashton Jeanty had has him falling against Penn State, has him falling to where he could possibly be drafted by the Dallas Cowboys. I don't see it. I feel like, though, you've got to address your offensive and defensive line if you're the Dallas Cowboys. If Jeanty's there, you take Jeanty, right? Prim and Proper Sports saying, please sit down, Sean Payton. Absolutely no way. And then saying the Dallas Cowboys need a good running back. I think they have a good running back. I've got faith in Rico Dowdle. I like Deuce Vaughn. There's just something about a little itty-bitty running back that I love. I would like to see the Dallas Cowboys keep both of them or one of them, but I would also, if Ashton Jeanty's there, you got to draft Ashton Jeanty. Other than that, I don't know if you take a flyer on a running back in the first round, right? Like, do you want Scattaboo? Is that who you want? Like, I don't necessarily know if that's a guy that's going to change your franchise in the NFL. He's probably a great running back in college. Is he an NFL type running back? And I think that's going to be the question that needs to be addressed here in the future. So with the Dallas Cowboys, this is such a bad draft. But with the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, you got to address your offensive and your defensive line. Whoever the best available is at that point. But you go back to like Mize and Guyton, right? Like, or Mize. You look at them and you've addressed your defensive and offensive line, but they just haven't lived up to it. So it's just like, man, like, who do you get? Sonia saying from Prim and Proper Sports saying Scattaboo is lit. I don't know. I just don't know. And then going on to say the O-line for Dallas is currently garbage. Destiny saying woo Scattaboo or however you spell it. Also, that like it's Scatabo. It's not Scattaboo. There's not two U's. There's not a U or an O. It's Scatabo. It's not Scattaboo. Anyway, I'm just some dude. What do I know about saying words? Words. Going back though to Dan Ornelis' question, as we have just a couple minutes here left on the tipping point with Mike Tipton. Remember, we are brought to you by our friends over at RevAutoCarCare.com. RevAutoCarCare.com. Use promo code Tipton33. Save up to 15% on all of your car care needs. Green Bay, I believe, can get the upset in Philadelphia. I'm going to speak this into fruition. Green Bay gets the win. Tampa Bay beats Washington. Minnesota over the Rams. So with the games that we have going on, I have 1, 2, 3 of the 6 games as the road team winning. And I can really see that. I don't think Pittsburgh beats Baltimore. I know Denver's not going to beat Buffalo. And I've just got zero faith in the Washington Commanders pulling off the upset over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Prim and Proper Sports saying that's why Dak got hurt. The O-line isn't good. No, they're not good at all. And yeah, that is part of the reason as to why. And then saying Tipton, Tipton, Tipton 33, not tipping 33, Tipton, Tipton 33. So I will make sure I've got that kind of scrolling down here at the bottom as well. Promo code Tipton 33. I was asked a couple of other questions. I got to get back over here to it as my screen has gone weird to me. Medusa Designs asking if she can get a little bit of the a little sample of the stand-up comedy. We will be doing that a little bit later on. I don't think I can be able to do that as of right now. And asking me, how was life as a teacher? What happened at iHeartRadio? Was it working in radio? How was it working in radio, and do you miss it? What famous people have you met on the radio? And just more about you and how you got to where you are. So I will say this. I've met some amazing people in my radio life. Do I miss radio? Yes, I do. I mean, again, I got into this. I initially wanted to be a newspaper writer, but I knew that newspaper was kind of going down the way that it was. So I said, let me do radio. I wanted to do radio. I miss doing radio every single day. I like this, though. I love doing this because it allows me flexibility and freedom. And there were times at the radio station where if I said something that was truthful, I would get called into an office and say, you know what, maybe be nicer next time. And that's always a hard thing for me to deal with because I'm all about transparency, honesty, and of course, accountability. So it was difficult for me to be on the radio and say, oh, you know, this team's doing okay. They're giving it all they've got. Sure, they lose on an average of 27.5 points a game, but they're trying, guys. They're really, really trying. Prim and Proper Sports saying, great show, subscribed and shared, and will be promoting. I appreciate you so much. I will do the same for you as well. Tommy Canazza saying, Mozzie and Guyton are developmental guys with high upside, but they were also drafted in the mid-20s. This pick will be at the high end of the first round. The pick needs to make an immediate impact. I agree. I'm right now I'm working on creating like my own little mock draft. I will break down the first 12 because that's what we've got so far, the first 12 picks. And then we'll start kind of adding things as we go here and there. I'm not going to do the Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, let me give you 97 different mock drafts. It's just not going to happen. That's not my style of doing it. I'll give you one. I'm more than likely going to be wrong. This is just where I believe players should go. So that'll be a show that we do later on in the future. Medusa Designs, I am going to do a show where I talk about teaching, where I talk about my time in radio and how awesome or how terrible it could have been, or how awesome and how terrible it actually was. But that'll have to wait for another episode. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning in to today's show. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support, the sharing, all of that good stuff. I appreciate it deeply. Remember, go pay a visit to our friends at www.myhappynuts.com/Mike Tipton. Check out what they have and save insurmountable amounts of money on making sure that gentleman in your life or yourself is taken care of and so fresh and so clean. We'll see you all next week, everybody. Actually, I'm going to be on a little bit later on tonight. Check me out on Prim and Proper Sports at 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you all later.